Okay, so in the previous video, we set up these guides that we have on here, but let's say we want to try to make 9 different versions of a logo that we want to present a client or something in the future. So I'm just going to go over to my text tool, which is T with a shortcut on your keyboard. And I'm going to go in and just type something in here. Now, here's my color that I can choose, and I can do that at the end, but I'm going to put in here something along the lines of live and healthy. Now, I want to talk about something real quick because if you want to actually bend or shape each one of these independently, then I need to make 2 text layers. So instead of doing 1 text layer altogether, I would actually go in and instead do something like this. So I would do live, and let me put it in capital, and then a check mark or return to commit or apply it. And then I would move this over and so forth and line this up. And then I would go back into my text tool and I would do the same thing. So let's do this as all caps. Oops. And then we would take this and we would find, of course, a font that's more appealing for this. So in my choices over here, properties panel should be here. If not, once I'm in the text tool, if I double click, it should be at the top. I'm going to go ahead and find something that's a little bit more there. Maybe this one, the NASDAQ, or if you will. So I'm going to grab this, hover over this, and pull this down some, and something like that. And then I'm using 2 different fonts just because it makes it more appealing when you do that. So I'm going to go in and just do a quick little alignment on this. And I'm going to take this color. I'm going to just double click or go up the top or over here in my properties, whichever one comes up. And I'm going to pick something in the red family. Now, I don't want to use bright red. I want to use something that's more in maroon because it just looks a little bit more appealing. And you'll notice the live stands out more than the healthy or the live, whichever way you want to say that. So I'm going to go in now and double click on that. And I'm going to go and change this just slightly. So from 36 to maybe, I don't know, we're just going to try 30 and see how that looks. And check mark. That doesn't look too bad. Now, let's say I want to actually bend this or warp it in some shape. There is a feature in Photoshop that's built in. If I go to this T with the little arc underneath, it will give me a drop-down menu. Just move that window out of your way and then go in and look. So if I did arc, for instance, it would do that. I could adjust the amount of bend one way or the other. I could distort it both horizontally and vertically. So remember, these are usually somewhere around, you can just zero everything out and then you're kind of starting fresh. This is usually somewhere around, 30 or 50. So let's say I did 25% or plus 25 in here. And if you can't get it exact, just go ahead and type it. And I'm going to apply that. Now, this in itself is a logo that I could probably use if I really wanted to, but let's say I want to do something a little bit different than this. So maybe I want to have blue or something in here or red incorporated along with this black. So I can also double click on the T in my layers, and I'm going to go into something and look at changing this color from black to blue, some shade of blue. And of course, the hashtag right here, which would be 2000 AA, I could copy and paste somewhere. So once I've done that, I can check mark it. And now I've got this red and this blue. But let's say I want to add something else to this. So underneath my effects at the bottom of my layers, wherever that may be in your setup, you will click this and I will just try a stroke. And let's just see if I were to go into this and pull some shade of that red, which by the way, if I go out here and I carefully click over this with the eyedropper, it will pick the color for me. And I can have that match. And then I change my inside to maybe center. And maybe I just bump this to 2 or 3. I don't want to overdo it. Now look what happens when I do that. It kind of spills over. So I may want to look at doing inside versus out. But let's say I don't want to do a stroke at all. Maybe I just want to add a drop shadow to it. So I can check this one off, and you'll see there's a little tiny bit of a shadow there. And I can, of course, go through if I click on the words and change the opacity so it's a little stronger. It's on multiply usually by default. You have to just kind of play with these settings. So if I go really crazy, I could do like the shadowing of it, do a reflection, and I just want to add a little bit there. And I don't want to do the spread because the spread's going to do this. And then that's going to fade it out quite a bit. So if I bring this way down, you'll see that it actually kind of doesn't blur. So you just play with these. And let's say I want this to be off to the right or left. I can just grab and rotate, and it will actually change the direction. So it's coming from the top to bottom or somewhere else. That's just a preference. And then there's a lot of other effects you can do in here. I'm going to put this back to 90. A lot of other effects. It's just experiment. If I wanted to, I could go in and change this and do some beveling and so forth, but all that would be up to you as a designer. So that's real quick on how I can actually manipulate this. Remember, if I wanted to do this as individual pieces, so I wanted to warp this individually, I would then go back in and I could click this, and I can actually change this to something else completely different if I wanted to. I could do a bulge, and I could take that down some so it's not quite so much. So now it's kind of following the suit of the bend that I have a little bit, kind of follows the arc here, if you will. And if I select both, I get my alignment tools, and I can just make sure everything's aligned now and pull this down if I really want it to be centered till I see the crosshairs. And that's pretty much it. And of course, you would save this work when you're done. You always want to do a save. So you always save your initial file, and then you go through and do a Control S or a Command S frequently just to keep the file updated in case for some reason your program crashes on you. At least whatever you save last, or the autosave at the very least will actually help you, hopefully. Well, that's it, and see you next time.